Well, joining me now is Chair of the Justice Committee, Paul Givan. Are you happy that this will end the antagonism that has existed between prison officers and management?
I think the progress that's been made should be welcomed. The Prison Officers Association leadership have stretched themselves to try and accommodate the prison service management, and that's required negotiation and compromise. But ultimately the fine detail still needs to be worked out. But it's moving in the right direction, and I think we should welcome that.
A sign of the times, the number of people who have been applying for the jobs that will be vacated by people taking the redundancy package.
Yeah, 200 new custody officers. What we wanted to ensure as a party was you're selected on the basis of merit. When the police recruitment, it was based on 50-50, which discriminated against the Protestant community. We've changed that. That won't be happening. These individuals will come forward on merit. But it does show the difficulties in our economy when so many people are applying for these jobs. But it's a job that's valued. It's a service that has a proud history, so I can understand the demand that exists for it.
What about this issue of the uniform? That was obviously big news a couple of months ago when it came in just at the end of the day's business.
The uniform issue has been dealt with, and I think it was important that it was resolved whenever David Ford raised that initially. Peter Robinson made it very clear that the emblems, the names, the badges wasn't going to change, would be subject to the veto that we have through the executive. Now that that's been dealt with and clarified, it's important that we get into the fine detail of how the prison's going to operate, the type of structures that are going to be put in place, the environment that you're working in, so that we can focus on those details rather than being fixated, as some seem to be, with a uniform.
When it comes down to the body imaging equipment that David Ford has been talking about, how important is that in the attempts to resolve the Maghaberry dispute?
Well, that dispute's a long-running one which needs to come to an end, and David Ford needs to stand very firmly on the agreement that he had reached and shouldn't be compromising with the Republicans that are protesting over this issue. Now, the prison officers have made it clear that if there is technology that allows it to do the same job as they've been carrying out, then they'll support that. But ultimately, the safety of the security of those officers is paramount. To ensure that prisoners that have in the past smuggled in Semtex, for example, isn't allowed to happen again. So let's see if this technology will get a licence to be operated within the United Kingdom, but we shouldn't compromise the safety of the jail to facilitate these Republican protesters.
But on the wider issue, it won't detect drugs, which is surely a much greater problem for our prisons than the genuine threat of Semtex or guns being smuggled in.
Yeah, drugs is rife within our prison population. It's a very significant issue in terms of the security of the prison, because prisoners, some allege, are being allowed to have the amount of illegal drugs and also legal medication in order to keep a peaceful environment within the prison. That can't be a sustainable way forward into the future. Medically, it wouldn't be good for prisoners not to be being taken off these drugs, and that's something that needs to be dealt with.
OK, Paul Givan, thanks very much for joining us.